Doing that will give you more jail time than most people who do bad things to kids actually serve. Hey guys, thank you for tuning into today's presentation. So, short-barreled rifles, short-barreled shotguns, and suppressors are highly misunderstood and often receive a lot of attention from both supporters and opponents of firearms rights. In this video, I want to shed some light on these classifications, explain legal configurations, and explore the practical use cases for civilians. Now, let's start with the basics, all right? Straight facts and definitions. Full disclaimer, I am not a lawyer and this is not legal advice. State and local governments can have different regulations on firearms, so make sure that you are familiar with your laws before purchasing, possessing, using, or transporting any firearm. Who am I? I am right now some guy on the internet. I have not always been some guy on the internet. From 2010 to 2015, I was in the French Foreign Legion, and I've been an avid shooter for pretty much all of my adult life. With that being considered, most of my opinions on firearms come into use case scenarios, all right? So being on a range is not something that is in my first thought when I'm using a firearm or testing a firearm or exploring its capabilities. I'm typically looking at it more from the standpoint of if I have to carry this for 20 miles or have it on me for 4 months before I see any action with it, am I going to hate my life for that? Or am I going to hate the gun during that process? Chances are, probably. But in any case, that's my mindset. Just so that everybody understands that first off, okay? So, getting into definitions, from the ATF website, all right, a rifle is defined in part as a weapon designed or redesigned, made or remade, and intended to be fired from the shoulder, and designed or redesigned and made or remade to use the energy of the explosive in a fixed cartridge to fire only a single projectile through a rifled bore for each single pull of the trigger. All right, so let me explain a little bit what that definition means, okay? So the rifle is designed to be fired from the shoulder because it has a shoulder stock, okay? So I'll give the first example, all right, on this AR-15, all right? It is designed to be fired from the shoulder because it has this shoulder stock, okay? That provides a very stable shooting platform to which I can do whatever I need to do, okay? So this is also from the ATF website. A rifle is subject to the NFA only if the rifle has a barrel or barrels of less than 16 inches in length. A weapon made from a rifle is also a firearm subject to the NFA if the weapon, as modified, has an overall length of less than 26 inches or a barrel or barrels of less than 16 inches in length. Okay, so for this video, we're going to stick with straightforward examples that are a little bit more practically applicable, okay? And if you don't think that it can get complicated, let me show you a very quick example of why this can get very complicated very quickly and why simplification of the rules is really, really important. Okay, so this 1911, okay, show clear. If I were to find a way to permanently affix this handgun to the bottom of this rifle, and this is not attached, don't come shoot my dog, okay? All right, if I were to find a way to attach this firearm to this one, because this handgun has a 5-inch barrel, that would have a barrel of less than 16 inches in length. Remember, it's barrel or barrels, okay, it's plural. This would now become an illegal firearm, okay, regardless of the overall length. Barrel less than 16 inches becomes an NFA regulated item. That's how quickly this can devolve. And remember, doing that will give you more jail time than most people who do bad things to kids actually serve, okay? So let that sink in of how crazy this whole thing can get and why I think we need some good explanation on this, okay? Moving on. Short-barreled shotgun is any shotgun with a barrel of under 18 inches. I don't have any short-barreled shotguns, so I'm not going to bring that out. To keep this simple, I'm only going to stick with rifles and similar models, okay? And we're also going to cover suppressors, okay? So technically referred to as silencers. The term, again from the ATF website, the term firearm silencer or firearm muffler means any device for silencing, muffling, or diminishing the report of a portable firearm, including any combination of parts designed or redesigned and intended to be used in assembling or fabrication of a firearm silencer or firearm muffler, any part intended only for use in such assembly or fabrication. Okay, let's simplify that. If you put something on the end of your gun to make it quieter, any combination of parts, or you have those and they are not on your gun, that is referred to as a silencer, okay? And that is an NFA regulated item. That includes something that is ready to assemble or readily converted. All right. So moving on, the term pistol means a weapon originally designed, made, and intended to fire a projectile from one or more barrels when held in one hand and having either a chamber as an integral part of or permanently aligned with the bore, and a short stock designed to be gripped by one hand at an angle and extended below the line of the bore. Okay, so pistol designed to shoot one bullet per pull the trigger with what is referred to a stock, okay, that goes down below the line of bore. Okay, there is no vertical grip forward, so it is designed to be shot with one hand. It does not have a shoulder stock either, so it is not designed to be shouldered, okay? So let's get into some more specific classifications and where this really starts to get a little bit weird, okay? So this right here is my Wiser 10 AK, okay? Show clear. All right, so this has a barrel of 16¼ inches and an overall length of more than 26 inches, okay? This is legally classified as a rifle, okay? Now, basically the same firearm, but in a different configuration. That's Romanian, this is Romanian, this is a Draco. They fire the same caliber, they take the same magazines. However, this one does not have a shoulder stock, okay? The sling is irrelevant, and it doesn't have a vertical foregrip, okay? So it is technically designed to be shot in only one hand, okay? For anybody who's actually going to use something like this, at least using a sling will keep this a lot more stable, and the definitions refer to vertical foregrips, okay? This does not have a vertical foregrip, so I can put my hand up front, okay? All right, so let's take a look at these side by side, okay? This also has a folding stock, my Wiser 10, okay? So there is not really a whole lot of advantage to be able to conceal this over this. The profile is really not that different. Barrel's a little bit longer, of course, all right? And then, I mean, this one just has a bigger red dot sight on it, but that's totally irrelevant. These two are perfectly capable of being used to their fullest extent with just iron sights, okay? So another thing that I want to draw a comparison with is here, show clear and show clear. Remember, first rule, treat guns as if they are always loaded. These two AR-15s are both classified as rifles, okay? This one has a barrel length of 16¼ inches, okay? This one right here has a pinned and welded flash hider that is 4½ inches on a 12½ inch barrel that gives it an overall length of about 16¾ once the threads overlap each other a little bit. All right, but it is over 16 inches, and because this flash hider has a pin that was drilled into the barrel and then spot welded over that, per the ATF's definition of a permanently affixed flash suppressor or accessory on the end of a gun. Okay, pinned and welded. Okay, that's not glued. That is not stuck on real tight. That is not screwed on. That is permanently affixed. Okay, it's welded on there. It's possible to remove this, but it would take a lot of work, and you're better off just getting a new barrel anyways. Okay. The reason why I made this one this way is because I really wanted to have a shoulder stock and not just a pistol brace, because the shoulder stock is a lot more comfortable, even though pistol brace here is really only separated from a stock by the amount of surface area. However, there's no actual definition or classification of exactly how much surface area counts, and these parts have been subject to a lot of varied regulation and different opinions over the last couple of years. So definitely be really, really careful about putting one of these things on the end of your pistol that is legally classified as a pistol, because you don't want to get yourself in hot water. Okay. But so drawing the same comparison as to the Romanian AKs, okay, these two rifles are identical, save for this flash hider being off of there. Okay, you really have no difference of practical concealability, okay, from having this short-barreled rifle, or what would be a short-barreled rifle, without this extended flash hider, just to make it this much shorter. Okay, you do sacrifice a little bit of mobility, especially in tight spaces. So that's one of the whole points of this argument, and we'll get to that in just a second. Okay, but for now, I just want to show you the difference in profile between what would be a pistol and what would be a rifle. It is practically the same. This Draco pistol is the same legal classification as this 1911. Okay, this has I believe it's an 11.5-inch barrel versus a 5-inch barrel, single point of grip. All right, no shoulder stock, no shoulder stock. Legally, this is the same. These fall into the same categories. Okay. So civilian use case and why it matters. Let's talk about these items. Okay, SBRs, SBSs, and suppressors aren't just niche tactical toys. They actually have a legitimate use case for responsible civilian defense. Okay, pistols and rifle calibers aren't a practical substitute for rifles. Okay, handguns, especially those chambered in rifle calibers, are notoriously difficult to shoot accurately, especially under stress.
Now, keep in mind that was slow fire. That was really not that easy to hit, and I definitely don't believe that I would comfortably be able to hit at any significant distance.
Factor in muzzle blast, recoil, and a shorter sight radius, and you've got a recipe for missed shots. These missed shots increase the risk of collateral damage, something every responsible gun owner wants to avoid. You need to avoid. Remember, just because you miss doesn't mean your bullet stops. Fourth rule: know your target and your background, and that includes for self-defense. Okay, a stocked short-barreled rifle is much more controllable and accurate, especially in a home defense scenario. Okay, with this 1911, I can hit reasonably well, shooting pretty fast at 15 yards, taking my time from a brace position, pretty comfortable up to about 50. Okay, the bullets will still go a lot farther than that. Okay, but that's about my practical accuracy limit with that. Okay, with any of these rifles, I can hit a man-sized target pretty fast inside of 100 yards, and from a stable shooting platform, let's say this AR-15, I can hit pretty comfortably out to about 500 yards. Okay, that's the maximum that I've pushed it through, and accuracy definitely starts to deteriorate, but for all intent and purpose, I can reach out and touch somebody, okay, if I need to. Now, law enforcement gets it. Why not civilians? Okay, law enforcement agencies across the country most often use SBRs, or quite often use SBRs as standard patrol rifles. Why? Because in real-world encounters, where in homes, buildings, tight urban spaces, patrol cars, whatever, a full-length rifle is generally unwieldy and cumbersome, okay? And a handgun lacks the stability and accuracy. SBRs strike the right balance, compact enough to maneuver, but they are powerful and precise enough to stop threats effectively. Civilians face the same challenges in home defense, on private property. The tools that work best for the police in those scenarios also work the best for us, okay? Remember, if you're on your own and potentially facing any type of threat that you need to be ready for, it is on you to have the best tool for the job to keep yourself and your family safe. In the closest civilian encounter that I've come to people actually starting to shoot at each other, the gun that I had on my person, long story, was this very Draco, okay? Now, I have pulled some really tight strings, shooting it reasonably fast at between 25 and 50 yards, okay? With the use of the sling, pushing out, called it the British SAS method or whatever. But anyways, this works fairly stably, but it is not the best. I would much rather have the stability of its big brother rifle in that, or otherwise just having a shoulder stock on me, okay? And what was really funny about that whole situation was funny because it was extremely ironic. The most hilarious near-miss self-defense situation that I've ever heard of, okay? Hilarious because of irony, not because of, it's not funny to be shooting at people. It's not funny to have to defend yourself. However, when somebody thinks that they've got an easy target, and me and a bunch of the boys are coming back from the range, happen to be at that exact moment where somebody wanted to do something bad, and there's 5 of us with guns, it was crazy. Anyways, he learned very, very fast to not F around, because my thought after that situation had diffused was, man, I'm glad I didn't have to get into a gunfight with this. Anyways, so public safety is not served by restricting responsible ownership. The harsh reality is that someone intent on doing harm can create an illegal SBR with some very basic tools. So I couldn't resist doing this. Some of you may remember this stunt from about 8 years ago, where Karen Mallard, in a congressional bid, showed us how easy it is to make an illegal SBR. First-hand experience. I'll admit, I've never gone to a gunsmith. I do all of my own builds and all of my own modifications myself, okay? Criminals don't follow the NFA paperwork, and a great example of something of this in action is people putting Glock switches that convert their semi-automatic handguns into fully automatic, highly illegal machine guns. You can even find people putting videos out on YouTube using these things. I would absolutely never do that, because my name is out there, my reputation is out there, and that would be a pretty immediate sentence to the big house. Again, for longer than most people who do bad things to kids actually end up serving. Consider that, okay? But if that serves as an example of criminals don't follow the law, there's no better example than that, all right? So it is really easy to, with a couple of basic tools, to make your own SBR, okay? From a rifle, all right? Or put a stock onto a pistol and make basically the same thing, except for there actually is a difference in that, but we're not going to get into that for the sake of this video, because it's a lot to explain. So what that means is these restrictions don't stop bad actors. They only disarm responsible people. Allowing law-abiding citizens access to these tools legally gives them the same advantage in self-defense, while reducing the risk of collateral damage. All right, so hitting somebody you don't want to, that is an absolute no-no, all right, from missed shots due to poor control. That is a public safety win. let me just explain how that whole collateral damage and ease of aiming happens for anybody who may not understand it, okay? When you're using a rifle with a shoulder stock, you have 3 points of contact, okay? So take three dots, line them up, and point to something, okay? Having 3 dots lined up is a lot easier than having 2, okay? Shoulder, hand, forward hand, okay? I can almost instinctively shoot out to about 50 yards and with a reasonable expectation hit a man-sized target. It's obviously a lot easier to aim as well, okay? Now, if I am doing the same thing with one of these, all right, or one of that, I'll get to that afterwards, 2 points of contact, and I'm trying to instinctively aim at something that's potentially moving, maybe shooting back at me, most likely if it's a self-defense situation, all right? It is a lot more difficult to connect these 2 dots because there's a lot more leeway that they can have, okay? In a similar fashion, with this, I've only got, I've got 2 hands on this, all right? But essentially I'm trying to line up these sights, okay? While, adrenaline's pumping, this thing can shake all over the place, all right? Having a good solid shoulder stock gives you a very, very solid point to be aiming from, okay? To defend yourself and not inadvertently kill or hit somebody that you didn't want to, all right? So that's why that as a short explanation is why having a shoulder stock on a firearm for home defense is a very good idea. Now let's go over suppressors. Suppressors are a safety tool, not a threat. It's very easy for people who have never used them to think that suppressors make guns totally quiet, they make you absolutely invisible. That's not true. A lot of suppressors, especially in closed environments, don't even make guns hearing safe, okay? They do reduce the decibel levels to something less immediately damaging for your ears, okay? In a home defense situation, firing a weapon indoors without hearing protection can cause permanent hearing loss very, very fast. Not only you, for your spouse and your kids, okay? Suppressors help protect hearing without affecting the lethality of your firearm, okay? They are safety devices. They are not stealth assassin tools, all right? So let's get into the legal part of this. Here's where it gets complicated, frustrating, and potentially extremely expensive, okay? Even if you go through all the proper legal channels, pay your tax stamp, wait months for the ATF's approval, and use your NFA registered SBR or suppressor legally for a home defense situation, okay? We're not going to talk about out shooting in the middle of the woods or whatever, or at a range, okay? That's a totally different scenario. Right now, we're talking strictly self-defense, okay? The moment that you use that firearm in self-defense, everything can change, okay? Very quickly. Instead of being viewed as a citizen lawfully defending yourself, you are now someone who used a restricted weapon in a shooting. That opens the door for extra legal scrutiny, both criminal and civil, even if the shooting was entirely justified. Civil suits, criminal charges, and the ATF interest become very real possibilities, okay? Figure that you're being judged by your peers, and your peers happen to be people who are not extremely familiar with firearms. From a prosecutor's standpoint, it may be very easy to paint you as some kind of domestic terrorist, or you were looking for a situation because you wanted to have all of these extra dangerous firearms. That is absolutely not the case. But to an unfamiliar folk, you may not see the difference, okay? Best case scenario, you're looking at months or even years of court battles, legal fees, public smear campaigns, and irreparable damage to your personal and professional reputation. Worst case scenario, prison time, permanent loss of your rights, financial ruin, all for using legally owned tools in a situation where your life or the lives of your loved ones were at risk. So what's the fix? All right. At the end of the day, we need to stop treating responsible ownership of NFA items as inherently suspicious or dangerous. If the government trusts you to own them after a thorough background check and registration process, they should trust you to use them in defense of your home or your property or your life, okay? without fear of second guessing or punishment. Therefore, these tools should not be on a damning list that puts your name into another government database. There's enough of those already. What can you do? Put on your salesman hats. You need to sell to your friends, neighbors, and families. So in between filming and the release of this video, the Hearing Protection Act has been put into the budget bill, the one big beautiful bill. The next step for it is the U.S. Congress, where it will get passed and then go to the president to be put into law. So as avid supporters for this, please, I will pin a comment with the number for the Congressional Switchboard where you can reach your representatives directly, okay? I did call the House myself before the bill passed, and somebody picked up. They do answer, they do listen. Your opinion does matter. Thank you very much. Votes are ultimately how we change laws and mitigate negative stigma against responsible gun owners, okay? Please present yourselves well, use factual arguments, and be polite when trying to sell the Second Amendment to your fellow patriots. Remember, we all have the ultimate goal of keeping our families safe. Let that be what unifies us. Thank you for tuning in. I appreciate you taking the time and making it to the end of this presentation. If you have anybody in your friend circle or your family who may benefit from this take, feel free to share it with them. Additionally, you can like or subscribe, check out some of my other content, stay engaged, and stay sharp. I'll see you in the next one.